Welcome to My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Leading the way in buying and selling homes, knowing the current housing market, updating your home without an extensive remodel, or how to stage your home for the perfect sale and more. Portland, Oregon real estate agent Ray Fletcher will bring his 20-plus years experience of real estate, home ownership, and selling homes to you in his bi-monthly podcast. This podcast will be your home headquarters for strategies to achieve success in your real estate investments. Now your host of the podcast, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Our resident home and real estate expert, Portland, Oregon area Ray Fletcher, is here today with me to talk about all things real estate. So Ray is a successful realtor in the Oregon area, and it's pretty fun to talk to him about all things that have to do with buying, selling, and possibly staging your home or getting it ready to sell. So, hey, Ray, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. It's starting to cool off in California. I don't know what you guys are dealing with up in Oregon, but it's fall, it's October, and we have birthdays coming up even.
Yeah, it's like somebody flipped a switch here. It's definitely rainy and cold and dark.
Yeah, since we put a pool in a year ago, we're still able to get in the pool and it's in the 80s, but I noticed today
nice.
I noticed today it's about 70s. So today I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit. I don't know if you knew this, but we are at a full year for your podcast. This is episode 22, and we've been doing pretty well, actually. You're hitting kind of the top 50 podcasts in real estate, and that's tough to do in this market.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
So Spotify loves you. Amazon Podcast loves you too. Amazon likes you. Actually, I should say. So yeah. There's some love out there. There's some but for a podcast, it's only, once a month. It's pretty nice to have a following.
Cool.
So I wanted to talk to you about staging. And I know, again, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because it's a year anniversary. And we started off the podcast with talking about staging your home to sell. But today I wanted to talk about it in a different way because, and I'll bring this up because I always do, is the fact that there's a lot of, TV shows talking about real estate and talking about, flip or flopping and selling and buying. And it's kind of out of control, as you know.
Yes, it is.
But I've noticed that for maybe the luxury market or high end, that a lot of sellers expect the agent to pay for staging costs along with marketing their home on the market. And then I'm finding that some of the lower end homes, and I don't mean to say it that way, but sure, not in the luxury market. How about that?
Yep.
They seem to realize that there's going to have to be some expense put into sprucing up the home, if you will, to de-personalizing it. We could go over, wallpaper, paint, all that. But
Yep.
What I wanted to ask you a question, first of all, do you feel like that's something you should have to pay for, or do you pay for that?
Yes and no. I have paid for it in the past. So there's a couple ways to look at it as an agent. One, where are you at with these sellers? Again, and a lot of agents would be like, "Oh, you treat them all the same." Well, in theory, you treat all sellers the same, but all sellers don't treat us the same. So I have to look at a few things. One, when I bring my comps on their home and we're discussing price, are we on the same page? And if, let's say, on these luxury homes, we're dealing with I would say that number is probably in Oregon would be $1.5 million plus is kind of that threshold of where you really want to be discussing staging, technically, staging and who pays for it, things like that. So if I think it's worth 1.5, they think it's worth 1.8, well, we have a problem based on I'm probably not going to get my money back for staging because our house is going to be priced too high. And so I have to look at this as an investment. Now the sellers are dictating what I do, and we can't have that. I can't have a bad listing because when I started this business, I would you take anything you can get. So I remember having one listing. I told them the price was this. They told me it was that. I said, all right, we'll give it a shot. It didn't sell. They fired me. They priced it exactly what I said with another agent, and it sold in the weekend. And so It really comes down to, are we working together as a partnership in getting the home sold? And then it goes, then the next section of this would be, what type of staging does it need? Because a lot of these homes are very nice. Do we just need some tweaking to where I'm just bringing more of an interior decorator in, and they're just going to move some things around and accessorize and things like that? I
Yeah,
don't know
it's
if that
funny.
answered your question.
And it did in effect. And it's interesting that you said that, because I do see, one of the things I see a lot, especially with luxury homes, is, and again, I know you're in Oregon, I'm in California. So you said you're 1.5 million. I think luxury homes here, because you don't get a lot for 1.5 million here, start at like 5 million. And, and even that's not as luxurious as some people think. Depends what your view is. Everything's about the ocean view here. But the one thing that I see some sellers say to agents, and I think you have the hardest job in the world, is they say, well, I don't have to sell unless I get the inflated price. And you look around their dwelling, their home, and it may be a great location. It may have good bones, is what I hear. It might be nice, but it could look like it came out, of a Victorian magazine from, the 1800s. I see that with the draperies and the red velvet, and, and then I do see some, and again, I could think I'm kind of projecting Hollywood glam, where I see some of that in this one show I watched, Selling LA, or $1 Million Listing Los Angeles. And it's like, they're like, well, it takes a certain buyer and you have to find them. That's your job. And I don't know if you deal with that in Oregon, because the people are so emotionally attached to their home, even once they want to sell. And it's like, why? I mean, you're not going to live there anymore. I understand wanting to keep the neighborhood nice, and I appreciate that. But you kind of have to look around. And do you ever come into a home, and again, we're talking about staging, but we're also talking about getting the top dollar for a seller. Do you ever look around and think, how do you not see that this wallpaper is from 1970s, or, there's no granite or quartz countertops, it's tile, and, you have stains in the carpet, or you don't have hardwoods, or whatever people are looking for. Do you ever come across that?
Yeah, and so a lot of sellers are, when they're pointing out what they call features of their home, they're normally pointing out something that they think has made a comeback. So like a wood paneling, and then they'll call it like, oh, it's Art Deco.
You mean like the hula hoop and the poodle skirt?
Correct. I'm like, no, that's 1970s, and most people don't want that. And so yes, we come across that all the time. And so, well, put yourself in a position as a seller right this second. You're watching all these home shows. We do this podcast twice a month. You probably have a pretty good grasp on what you think would need to be done to your house. Now, you would need to trust an agent to come in your house and say, hey, I want to move this over here, that over there. And most likely you'd be like, no, we're not doing that. And so,
well, I'd probably be a little offended, because we just remodeled within the last year and a half. So yeah, I can see your point.
Right. And I'm really only just discussing decor, not actually paint and colors. Yeah, in your scenario, I'm only talking about your scenario. Like, they would want you to, I haven't been to your house in a while, but back in the day, they would want to de-beach it, because you don't live near the beach. So no seashells, or a beach theme that maybe are a nautical theme that they wanted to tone down for the area.
Yeah, I don't have that but I see what you're saying. I have the tone of, my walls probably have a little bit of a blue tone, even though it's gray. I guess it is kind of beachy with the grays and the
remember your Tommy
whites
Bahama era?
Yeah, it is very Tommy Bahama, I have to say.
There we go. So
you're like, okay, I knew I'd find it.
Yeah. So some agents might be like, that's not what the vibe we want. And you would have to trust that agent that they're right. And hopefully they could show you why, if you don't trust them. Now, on another note, it's interesting that this is our topic. I was showing places yesterday, and we went into one house, looked at it, left, and I told the buyers I was with, their agent is doing this seller a disservice, because this agent should have asked the seller, where are you moving to? And if the seller had a place to move to, they should have said, I need you to move out, because this house was a disaster. And sometimes you're just not going to get not just top dollar, you're not even going to get asking price for your home if it just doesn't show right. And you walk in, I don't, again, we're talking about luxury and staging, but I walked into a bedroom and there was more drug paraphernalia for weed than I've ever seen in my life. So it's just the homeowner's relatives were sitting on the couch while we were looking at the house. So that's the levels to this game on what is the seller, what's the agent doing for the seller? That's not a service. I mean, you're just not doing it. You're doing a disservice. So when we talk about staging, if I'm in the home and I know what I think it can sell for, let's say it's a hot market. Even if I think I can get X amount in a weekend, if staging would get us over even more, then yeah, you just want to do it because everybody's happy. And that's the ultimate goal, is to just have a bunch of happy customers from all ends. So
it's, how do you talk a homeowner that, seems motivated to sell, that they've got to put a little bit of money into making it look like it's ready to sell? You
just keep talking.
Okay.
You just nonstop.
Sometimes, because when I talk about luxury homes, I see them going to, these realtors, these agents going to, the luxury purchases for the stagers. So they go to where, the couches are $20,000 a piece. I'm like, whoa. You don't necessarily need to do that because it's not to live there. And honestly, a lot of these places already have that couch that's now an antique. But look at what you have, the flamingo wallpaper that you're thinking, oh no, this is great. I'm thinking, take that down and paint the walls, even if you just paint them white. I realize that's probably not copacetic anymore. But the other thing is that I think some people can go too far with basically remodeling, or I don't like to call this part staging, but in fixing up their home, because again, some people get taste specific and other people just want to come in and tear it down and do their own thing.
Yeah, you want to if I'm a part of the discussion of getting the place ready to sell, we want to make sure whatever we do is very neutral, very broad spectrum for all the buyers out there. We don't want to single anybody out. We don't want to paint a room gold and green for the ducks.
So the red velvet is out.
Yes. You don't want to do anything sports specific, even though you may have a big following in that area. And there's certain things that neutral, basic, and the most important for me is just clean. You want everything as clean as possible so people walk in and they just don't see work. They just see, drop my bags and I've moved in.
Oh my gosh, right.
Always the goal.
So you mentioned something about sports specific. Oh my gosh. So there was one house that a friend of mine actually said, can you come look at this? I want to flip it. Can you just see it with me? And I'm like, okay. So actually, me, I work from home. I've got my own thing going on here. So I'm kind of a cave dweller. I don't really move out too much, except when we meet friends for brunch, twice a month or something, or go to a wine event. But we kind of, I'm kind of a homebody. So it was funny. I'm like, yeah, I'll go look. So the person that wanted to purchase it, diehard Steeler fan, like Tom and I are, and they had a room dedicated to Dallas Cowboys stuff.
Oh, there you go.
I know. And the seller or the buyer immediately went, nope, let's go. I'm like, why? He's like, did you see that room? I'm like, well, so you can take it down. He's like, yeah, no. He goes, if that's his taste and that's his taste in teams, then what else is the problem? I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Right.
Yeah. Have you heard that before? I just thought that was funny.
Oh, I've sold my neighbor's house, and I told him right off the bat, you have to take that elk head off the wall. He had a big elk head over the living room. You sit underneath it in the couch.
Oh no.
And I'm like, no, it has to come down. And he's looking at me like, no, like fighting it. And then I looked at his wife and she's like, it's coming down. We're fine. And it did. And so it's just, people think what they think, and they think that the buyer is going to be like them. That just
yeah.
isn't the case.
Yeah, not everything is cool. Not everything is cool. So here's another thing that comes up, and this one is kind of interesting to me because remember back in the day, somebody said you had laminate floors and you'd be like, ew. But now
Yeah.
laminate and vinyl floors have actually they're kind of they've got some high end. I know I have vinyl, and because hardwoods, if you spill water on it, you're done. Or if you've
Yeah.
got pets that, pee on it, you're done. And
Yep.
these new, engineered floors that look like hardwoods, they kind of are, they're kid friendly, they're, pet friendly, and they're definitely more long term. And
Yep.
so what do you think about that, especially in high end houses? And let's just start at the $1 million. Do you have to have hardwoods versus laminate? Or, and I know I like carpet in the bedrooms, but some people don't.
Sure.
So, I mean, what is your feeling on that?
So LVP is like the high end luxury vinyl planking, and that's the
Yeah.
latest and greatest. And you will see new construction, high end, is they use it. And so it's really how do the floors present themselves? And back in the day in 06, 07, Brazilian cherry was the floors, and brand new, they looked great, but it did not take long before they were scuffed and needed to be refinished. And so most most consumers now understand the value and the easiness of flooring, and LVP and things like that are very popular. And no, you do not have to have hardwood floors. In some of these higher end homes, even in Oregon, we have tile too. So it's not even a question of hardwoods.
Do most bedrooms now have carpet in them? I mean, it seems like they do.
It's mixed.
Yeah.
It's mixed. It's interesting because having LVP floors or a laminate or non-carpet floors, the stairs are really expensive to do. And so traditionally you'll walk into a house, and if you see the stairs are done as well, that's a first sign that this seller did not cut any corners, or this builder, depending on the era of the home.
Oh,
So
that's
keep that
good
in
to
mind.
know. That's really
Yeah.
good to know. Now, one of the things that I always wonder, and I have mixed feelings on this, especially because I think, let's say you hire stagers, which I think some of these shows say, oh, they're only $6,000. And then I see other shows that are like, oh no, they're $100,000. I'm like, well, which is it? That's a
Yeah.
big difference in cost, whether it be the agent paying for it or the seller. But
Right.
my question is, sometimes they overkill with too much furniture.
Yeah.
And it seems like the conversation with the agent and either a buyer or seller is always, well, you have to have it staged or furniture in there so people can see what this room means to live in it. But then I think, but how do I know if my furniture will fit if it's not empty? So what is your thought on that?
So it's just a matter of, yeah, there can be too much. When you stage vacant homes, it's usually, once again, you can put some extra things in there, and it's really it's up to the stager. You're trusting their eye and their mind for it. So there is a case for too much. I agree. And then that's just between you. That's between the agent and the stager's relationship to kind of go over that. And I had this happen on a place where the buyer was not happy with the stager. And we all had to have a conversation about it. I'm like, hey, we need to trust her judgment because this is what she does and this is what I'm paying her for. And we got way over asking. It panned out great. And they were like, okay, I get it. So that's just, yes, it can be too much, and so forth and so on. And again, on another note, when I did a staging for new construction, we only staged the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, and the primary bedroom.
Oh, that's
the rest
a
of
good
the
idea.
house was not staged. So we only did just the main rooms. And then the consumers can look at the basement or the bonus room, and then the kids or this other bedrooms on what those would look like. And the one interesting part was the bed they brought for the primary bedroom was an inflatable bed. I mean, it was just they just pumped it up and then decorated it, and it looked like a real nice bed. So there's a lot of little tricks of the trade that they do, which I was surprised because I never knew that.
And you hope people don't sit on it.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
don't
you hope
jump
they
on
don't
it.
jump on it.
Yeah.
How many home shows were the
I
husbands
know.
jumping on the bed,
Jumping on the
funny?
bed. I see that too. Or they try to use some of the owner's stuff that's still in the house. I'm like, no. But well, the other thing is too, is I noticed that there was one staging issue because the stagers made one of it was like a 3-2 home, and they made one of the bedrooms as an office. But what percentage of the country now works from home? You and I both do. And so it's crazy to me because they were not happy. They wanted all of them staged as bedrooms. They wanted bunk beds in one. And they're like, you don't understand. People need to know that there is a functional workspace at home, because at least one of the parents, if it's a, 2-parent home, or somebody in the home, is going to need an office. And the sellers weren't buying it. And like you said, they finally trusted the agent to do it that way, and they got over asking. And it's like, you have to trust, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just what they do. I mean, this is their profession. If they do a bad job, they don't get any more business. And so, and there's school for this kind of stuff as well. There is school for decorators, interior design, and all that stuff, and they take it. So, yeah.
So just to wrap up, if you were giving advice to the listeners and somebody was getting ready to sell and they were working with an agent, would you recommend that they basically stage purchase, or stage themselves and listen to the agent on what needs to be depersonalized, decluttered, and things like that? Maybe putting money into repainting, or is it individual?
It's completely individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be
100% individual.
Until you see it.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to see until you walk into these places and see what happens. But I would say the majority of it is cleaning the home. I would prefer to do home improvements than staging. So.
All right. Now, have you ever seen a home that is just so, I don't want to say trashed, but let's just call it old. Some people call it vintage. Some people say, oh, it has character. I just call it old. If it's really old, and again, I'm just going to refer to, wallpaper, and that, the paint has not been done for at least 5-6 years, and the floors are bad. Have anybody say to you, just sell as is, but you still have to try to get the top dollar? What do you respond to that?
Yeah, you definitely get sellers that just don't care. They just want to sell the home and get it done. And so with that, the only thing I try to get, the bare minimum, is clean. Just clean your house as well as you can. Let's stuff every closet full of your excessive stuff.
You're so politically correct just now.
Yeah. And basic yard maintenance, mow the yard. There's never a scenario where I would say, hey, let's not do anything. I just couldn't do it. So it's always walk in, move stuff around. I mean, it's 100%. So,
right. Declutter, start to pack some things up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, think about, just look around your own house and go, is my house ready to sell today? And you'd be like, oh, whoa, I've got lots of, my own home, I could probably use a truckload of boxes to just declutter before I was ready to sell my own house.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think if I look around too, probably the same.
There's papers everywhere.
Yeah,
just papers.
Just papers, because we do so much work. Well, and you also have a high school student, so her stuff.
That's a whole nother story. Yeah.
Well, I like this episode a lot because it doesn't just talk about, staging or not to stage, but it also, what does it mean to stage versus a little bit of home improvement, a little bit of, what do they call it when you're just it's just the aesthetics. I mean, people just need to be able to realize that if it looks trashed, if it's dirty, they're going to wonder what else they don't see as a problem, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So you want to at least let them see it and show well. Like you say, you can't make a first impression. And so I think that's what we're trying for, to get you your best dollar and the most for your house. All right. Well, thank you. This has been a great episode. I think our listeners will appreciate this.
I agree.
So that's it for us this week on My Home HQ podcast. Join us next time when we bring you more topics on real estate, home buying, selling, investing, and more. Drop us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make it a great rest of your month. Happy Halloween to everyone out there. And thank you for listening to the My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher.
Thank you for listening to My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Drop us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website and blog at www.rayfletcher.biz or contact Ray directly at realtorrayf@gmail.com to also subscribe to his weekly newsletter.